just like to welcome everyone for joining us today for the conversation with Lamasoft and JD Logistics. Today it's a difficult topic that we'll be exploring, taking a look at the COVID-19 response and recovery in China, and exploring how JD Logistics, one of the leading logistics companies in China, has worked to maintain its operations through this pandemic, and to help others in China get through this. And one thing I think that we need to note as we kick this off, all of our guests from JD Logistics today are wearing masks. They're all back at work. They're in the office. Speaking as a member of Lamasoft, 750 of us are remote today, but as we all begin to return to work, this may be what normal looks like for a little while. We simply don't know yet. So with that said, my name is Matt Gunn. I'm a product marketing director here at Lamasoft, and I am thrilled for today's conversation with JD Logistics. I'd like to welcome to the conversation Alfred Yao, Jolie, and Zachary Gidwitz from JD Logistics. We'll do some introductions with our speakers and to JD Logistics, and then we'll begin to look at not only the response and recovery efforts, but give those of you in the audience a sense of what this looks like as we continue to go through the challenges presented on a global scale by the novel coronavirus. Gentlemen, Alfred, how about let's begin today's presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking your time to attend this webinar. And thanks Lamasoft for offering us this opportunity to share our experience in fighting against the coronavirus. Okay, firstly, I'm going to introduce myself. Yeah, I'm Alfred Yao from JD Logistics. Yeah, and today I'm going to walk through the slides with you. And together with me are my colleagues, Mr. Jolie. Can you wave hello to the audience?
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, and another speaker, Mr. Zachary. Can you wave hello?
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Good to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I'll start my presentation today. Firstly, yeah, in case some of you may not be aware of JD.com, I'm going to give a very brief introduction of JD.com as the beginning. Actually, JD is China's largest retailer, and it is the first Chinese internet company to be listed as one of the global Fortune 200 company. And to the top right of the slide, you can see that actually JD.com is the third largest internet company in the world in terms of revenue. And okay, this is a chart showing the growth of JD.com's trading volume over the recent years. You could see that back in 2012, our trading volume, or we call it GMV, was merely 12.5 billion US dollars. However, in 2019, it has grown into almost 300 billion US dollars. Yeah, you must wonder why JD.com has grown so fast. Actually, in my opinion, it could be traced back to two very basic decisions by our founder, Mr. Richard Liu, at the very beginning of this company. He decided that first, he would have no counterfeit goods on his platform. And secondly, he decided to build his own logistics network to have a better control of the delivery experience. And gradually, JD.com has become a symbol of two things: speed and quality. And that actually laid the foundation for its rapid growth in later years. Okay, now let me introduce JD Logistics. This is a slide showing what we have in China. Actually, we are very proud that we offer 6 networks: normal sized items, bulky items, cold chain, and cross-border, B2B, and crowdsourced. And to give you some sense of how big we are in China, we cover 100% of the geographic jurisdictions across China in terms on the district and county level. And we serve 99% of China's population. And till this day, we have already got 700 logistics centers across the country, totaling an area of 16.9 million square meters. And we operate 25 Asia #1 smart logistics parks across the country, which have a high level of automation. Okay, the next slide shows actually JD.com has continued to connect more and more with overseas markets. And currently we are focusing on markets like Southeast Asia. We connect to the world with nearly 1,000 cross-border routes, such as China-EU trains, cross-border trucks, and leading airlines and shipping lines.
One thing that strikes me, especially with the network that you have, in a B2C environment, how quickly are you typically able to serve a consumer in China?
Yes, actually we have a thing called 211, which means that in the major cities across China, if you place an order before 11 a.m., you could get the parcel delivered by the end of the day. And if you place an order by 11 p.m., you could get delivered by the next morning. Yeah, that's our normal speed. And so actually the majority of the orders could be fulfilled within the next day.
That's
okay.
Incredible. Are you operating near those service levels today?
Actually, you know that the coronavirus has affected the operations for a while, but by and large, we have recovered. So we have managed to return to the normal service level now.
Thank you.
Okay.
And for our audience, if you have any questions for our panelists today, there is a Q&A function through Zoom. So feel free to submit any questions written. We'll be able to take a look at them and answer them toward the end of this broadcast. Thank you, Alfred. And I think what we'll see next is some more perspective on how the outbreak has affected operations.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue. Okay, let's get to today's key message. Let's look at the timeline and see what China's done to contain the development of the epidemic. Okay, let's start from January 23rd, the first day of the Wuhan lockdown. Yeah, and from that day, actually, the Wuhan government started building special hospitals to treat coronavirus patients, such as the iconic Huoshengshan Hospital, which was constructed in 10 days. Another key transitioning point was January 24th, which was the first day of the 7-day Spring Festival holiday period. People were asked to stay home, and medical workers, they started to rush to Hubei to help the situation there. And on February the 4th, more cities were sealed off. And yes, as you could see on the chart, Beijing, Shanghai, and many other big cities across China started to impose entry control in the residential neighborhoods. And on February 7th, yeah, this is another thing with Chinese characteristics, I believe. 16 provinces were designated to help 16 cities in Hubei. We call it one province on one city. And the province appointed to help the city, they will send medical workers, medical supplies, and basic daily necessities to that city to help that city to fight COVID-19. And yeah, with all these measures, you could see that the trend finally tapered off. And from this point, gradually, the travel restrictions were lifted by and by. And the latest development was that on 27th of March, the border control from Hubei to the adjacent provinces were lifted. And yeah, actually it is tomorrow, April the 8th, the Wuhan lockdown will be lifted tomorrow. So in retrospect, you can see that the lockdown of the epicenter, the building of special hospitals to take in as many patients as possible, the aid from all over China to help Hubei, and the widely adopted social distancing measures. Altogether, they have effectively slowed the spread of the disease and brought that under control.
And this all happened within really the last 3 months. In the United States, where many of us are maybe 1 month into our own measures to socially distance or to work remotely. So it is good to see the perspective of how the timeline played out. What time would you say you started to return to work when you got people back into offices in this timeline?
Actually, around this time, we have returned to work, but only some of us returned to the workplace. We came to the office on a rotation basis, which was meant to reduce the population density within the workplace, and the rest of us worked from home. And yeah, we gradually increased the percentage of people to be allowed to come to the workplace. And recently, the percentage was becoming nearly 100% now.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about the measures taken by JD Logistics. Okay. First and foremost, we spared no efforts to protect our employees, including disinfection of vehicles and workplace, supplying protective gears for workers, and measuring body temperatures. Okay, and secondly, we have a tradition of offering consistent operations in the Spring Festival period. Actually, we have done that for 8 years in a row. And this practice actually enabled us to have the personnel and the mechanism to sustain logistics service in the Spring Festival. So it was very natural for us to have the ability to continue operation in Wuhan, in Hubei, even in these special conditions. And thirdly, we leveraged our logistics infrastructure to meet the need for logistics service. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have 25 Asia #1 smart logistics parks, and they have a higher level of automation than others. And actually, we ramped up their capability to serve as the backbone to sustain the logistics network up and running for the most difficult times. And on the top, we have several more value-added things. Yeah, the first one, we have built a emergency response resource information platform, to match supply and demand. We enabled the provision of 660 million pieces of critical supplies. We fulfilled our responsibility to continuously supply the basic needs of the daily necessities. We serve a lot of this commodity on our platform, and we continue to do so over this difficult period to supply staple food, vegetable, meat, dairy products, eggs, to the consumers across the country, which was even more important when people stayed at home for a prolonged period of time.
All right, and I have to apologize. I actually lost my computer went out for a second there, so I'm back on my phone. As you were going through the last slide, one thing that I wanted to learn a little bit more about. So we've heard of, or a lot of companies in the U.S. are concerned about personal protective equipment, having masks, gloves, the ability to protect workers. Were supply issues for that ever a concern for you? What steps did you take to make sure that people had the right equipment to stay safe across your organization?
At the beginning of the crisis, actually, we had the same problem probably as you had. When we went to the drugstores, the online platforms, or to the supermarkets, actually, all the facial masks were gone. Actually, we understood that actually the resources have been reallocated to help out the epicenter of the disease, Hubei province. But fortunately, I think it's a blessing in disguise. Just take my personal experience as an example. Because I live in Beijing city, and actually, smog or air pollution used to be a very, very severe problem in Beijing, especially several years ago. And for that reason, actually, we stockpile some N95 facial masks in our home or in the office. And in my personal opinion, this is one of the reasons when this epidemic struck, most of us have some supply of facial masks at hand, because you know that, or even though the air quality has improved a lot over the recent few years, but we still kept the habit of stockpiling some facial masks, and they came in handy in the first few weeks of the crisis. And later on, as you know, that China's manufacturers of, for example, automobiles or some apparel makers, they transformed their production line to producing facial masks in a very rapid period of time. And as you know, the production capacity increased to more than 100 million facial masks for each day in China. So with this increased supply gradually, and another reason was that actually the disease have been brought under control gradually. So the combination of the two factors balanced the supply and demand. So we didn't have the problem of not able to buy facial masks. Probably a few weeks after the beginning of the crisis. So the problem got solved. And for our company, our policy was that actually each of the employees would only be allowed to go to work with the protective gears. Because that is the policy to help them, to prevent them from getting infected. As you can see in these pictures, our couriers, when they send their supplies to the hospitals in Wuhan, they wear masks and protective goggles, yeah, and actually gloves to help protect themselves.
It's funny in a sense that having preparation simply for air pollution was something that helped early on, and you know, the ability to change the manufacturing network and scale up production has been, it sounds like, a tremendous help.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I understand that this could be a different story for the United States because you enjoy a very high quality of air. So maybe you don't have the habit of storing N95 masks in your home, and that's a problem for you. Yeah.
Yeah, not quite the same here, although there has been a big groundswell in people at least making cloth masks for the time being to help people get through.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but I believe that with the your manufacturers ramping up production for the protective gears, and also China and the other countries around the world continue to increase the production of the facial masks and supply to the United States. I believe that will be solved in the end. The first case was to help one of our multinational customers to transport a batch of virus protection masks to Wuhan, which had been locked down at that time. Okay, we put together a cross-functional team to collaborate on the mission. We received the goods in Shanghai airport, locked in shipping space on the train. Yeah, you know, that would be very difficult at that time. And then ship the goods to the designated location in Wuhan from the train station. And all these were done within 26.5 hours. Another case involved international transportation. It was another multinational customer who wanted to send 55,000 hand sanitizers from Singapore to Shanghai. Because hand sanitizers contained alcohol, it was categorized as dangerous goods. Okay, we completed the dangerous goods packaging and certification process, and you know that at that time lots of international flights had been suspended, but we managed to lock in the shipping space and completed the customs clearance in the fastest manner to have the goods delivered to the customer. And actually the two cases were all in the early stage of the epidemic development, in which actually the world rushed to help China to fight the disease. Yeah, we were very grateful for that. And actually the recent development of the disease has been China sending a lot of medical supplies to all around the world because in overseas, the situation got more severe. And JD Logistics was also able to help our customers send materials abroad. And actually one of the value-added service we could provide is to help the customers understand their compliance requirements, both in China and the destination country.
Excellent.
Okay. And okay, here are some of the tips for the audience, how to react to the emergency situation, some of the experience drawn by JD Logistics. Firstly, we believe that it's essential to have a central emergency response program and team to coordinate all the efforts and publish the guidelines on how to cope with the disease. And here, actually the funds are pretty small, but actually it is the methodology for my company to react to the situation. Okay, and we think that for each country, each province, each city, and also for each company, we need to have a emergency response team to coordinate the efforts. And secondly, as mentioned, again, I need to emphasize again, protect your employees. Prepare materials like masks, goggles, thermometers, and sanitizers, etc. Disinfect the offices, warehouses, factories, and vehicles. And for office workers, encourage them to work from home if possible. And at later stage, as I mentioned, people can rotate to come to the company to reduce the density of the people on site. And in case of employee, this is very important. In case of employee reporting symptoms of coughing, fever, whatever, ask him or her to stay at home for self-quarantine and seek medical help as appropriate. It's better safe than sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's a very important point. Just for perspective, for JD Logistics, what's the balance? How many of your employees, well, how many employees do you have? How many of those are working in an office versus how many of those are directly working in the movement of material and goods?
Yeah, you asked me, you got me. Actually, I know that we have till this day about 180,000 employees for the whole group, and I know that the majority of them are frontline workers working as couriers, as workers in the distribution centers and the warehouses. So actually, this tip doesn't work for them. They have to be there physically to move the parcels, to deliver the parcels to the recipient. And for the minority of the workforce, we are office workers, and that's where it comes from to how to work remotely and to apply their online collaboration tools to enable working from home.
So in this case, it's absolutely critical in most cases that you are protecting those employees and making sure that you don't have an infection there in a warehouse or somewhere where they're going to be more exposed to not only your own staff, but to other people.
Yes, that is even more difficult than protecting the office workers.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Another point was that we need to closely monitor the development of the disease and be well updated on the changing travel restriction policies. Such as which areas were blocked. This is a pass enabling a truck to pass a certain province. And we need to be well prepared for these changing policies. Finally, we need to stay flexible, okay? For example, we can use the modeling tools to do what-if analysis to optimize the route and node to avoid affected areas. And also we can be creative in collaborating with our partners. For example, some of them had their business hit hard by the pandemic and thus had spare human resources. And these guys, we could hire temporarily. Okay, so let's talk about some positive things. We have enter a stage of recovery. And as you can see, the big three numbers, that is the percentage of the percentage of companies, percentage of employees getting back to work as of the end of March. And these two figures were for the bigger companies. We call it industrial enterprises above designated size. Actually, for the SME, the small and medium enterprises, the recovery rate was not that good yet, but actually that were ramping up gradually too. And as the two charts below show, the LTL and FTL transportation have been returning to normal as well. But as you can see, the LTL has not recovered to the pre-crisis level yet, but the FTL has, by and large, came back to normal. Okay, some actions taken by JD Logistics during the restore and adapt stage. Okay, firstly, by early April, all of their couriers, warehouse workers, and drivers, they've come back to work in Hubei province. Okay, and actually, JD has worked with nearly 10 cities in Hubei to help them return to work by arranging ground transportation. And secondly, during the crisis, JD Logistics Technologies also played a positive role. For example, we adopted a lot of non-contact methods to deliver our parcels, such as an increased use of self-service lockers, robot and drone delivery, as well as the practice of setting up mini delivery stations outside residential neighborhoods for residents to come out and pick up their parcels. Yeah, traditionally, our couriers would send the parcels door to door to the recipient's home. However, in this unusual period, the couriers were not allowed into the residential neighborhoods, as you could imagine. So yeah, our reaction was to set up a mini site outside at the entrance of the residential neighborhoods, and we call or short message the residents to come out and pick up their parcels by themselves.
This is very unique for JD Logistics to have the robots, the drones to help with that final delivery to a consumer. Has this been a fairly normal practice for you to deliver this way? Do you think that it will become more common to use delivery drones or robots in the future?
To be frank, these technologies, in normal situations, they have not come to the economies of scale to be widely adopted yet. So they have been applied in very limited scenarios, such as, for example, there was a mountain village, and it takes longer time for the courier to walk up the mountain to deliver the parcel than to send the parcel to the recipient by the drone. And but usually in the densely populated city centers, it's not economical to. It's more economical to deliver by couriers. And another thing was the restrictions on the airspace. In this special period, actually the technology found more applications because people were afraid of face-to-face contact, and sometimes the application of technology came in handy to help in this situation.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Another thing was smart routing. Well, we used to better our service. Firstly, we optimized the routing to avoid Wuhan as a transit node as much as possible, because you know that Wuhan, it is right in the center of China. So it used to be an important hub pre-crisis. But in the crisis, you know that the situation in Wuhan was affected. So except for those parcels entering Hubei, if the parcel is unnecessary to go through Wuhan, we will reroute it to go through other hubs. Okay, and secondly, we optimized our algorithm to prioritize the packages to strategic locations like hospitals and supermarkets. And also we better match the supply and demand to ensure these critical supplies like facial masks, sanitizers to be made available to Hubei. And all these technologies, we believe, will continue to play a bigger role in our business on the road ahead. Okay, finally, let's discuss some tips on how to improve in the restore and adapt period. Firstly, we need to build buffers in our supply chain to increase agility and resilience. And the buffers could be production capacity, inventory, IT system, or direct labor. And we need to update our contingency plan. Okay, secondly, we need to review our supply chain network and assess the overall risk, work out alternative solutions for critical material, routes, and markets. And of course, our strategic partner, LlamaSoft, will be of great assistance on this. And third, build stronger relations with your suppliers, customers, and partners. And you could be creative in this. For example, logistics companies can share workforce with the restaurants, cinemas, shopping malls, and so on, because amid the crisis, all these locations were closed, and so they have extra workforce. And they have somewhat transferable skills, so they can be relatively easily trained to help us out in terms of the logistics service. We can hire them temporarily. Okay, and finally, there is never a better time to look at the digitization tools you have on hand and develop stronger skills in managing your workforce remotely. Actually, I was amazed that by applying some of these technologies, actually, the efficiency and effectiveness of my team went beyond my expectations, even if each of us work from home. And also, it's an excellent time for you to further boost your automation level.
Yeah, I mean, we all have had to adapt very quickly to these changes. It is amazing how many tools are available for those of us that are lucky enough to be able to work remotely. I think at this point, we'll take a look at some of the questions in the Q&A. Jolie, Zachary, did you have any questions that you saw in there that you want to speak to or that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I see someone is asking, can you explain deeper the main safety measures you guys have implemented to keep the delivery crew safe? I think the key measures has already been mentioned by Alfred. So we prepare the PPE for our crews. Also, we help them to get the insurance covered themselves and their family. So I think most of staff has been 100% covered by all of this, and they are very willing to work in the front line to help our customers.
So mainly just to respond to how notifications were done. Right now, we have a very robust system for communicating both up and down. One of the things that really needs to be emphasized, it was said by Albert earlier, but to emphasize how every time you go in any building, so even when we go back to the office, every time I go in and go to a restaurant, go to a new neighborhood, I have my temperature taken. I have to write it down. I have to, if I go to a new community or a shopping mall even, I have to scan a QR code. And it basically shows my recent travel history. It shows where I've been. What this allows is not only catching people who may be showing symptoms, but if someone later is shown to be sick, they know exactly where they've been and can trace back where they've been and where everyone else can be. So while I haven't heard of cases at JD, I do know that, for example, as soon as someone in a community, in a neighborhood near JD, was shown to have contracted the virus, we all received notices right away. All managers talked with their teams to see if any of their employees lived in that neighborhood, lived in that community or in that building, and anyone in a certain radius, for example, in the same apartment complex, would then have been asked to self-quarantine and not come to the office for 14 days. So it's through such effective measures that the spread of the virus really was cut off quite dramatically.
Thank you. Can you speak to the importance of being able to model and understand scenarios, the role of supply chain design in managing through a risk like this? How much does it help to be able to identify what your supply chain looks like and be able to shift as needed your operations to be able to be responsive?
So as you may notice, JD Logistics has built a very strong infrastructure. So basically we have 6 different networks. As we already mentioned, even Wuhan is in the middle of the China, and it mentioned nine province has a contact with Hubei, Wuhan, but once there's some problem with Wuhan, we managed to redirect our inventory and direct our order to other nearby node, like Nanjing or like other distribution center has been activated to support. So that's what we bear the buffer and bear the resilience into our whole infrastructure. So during the last month, we really see the orders increase a lot, including both the transaction order and the logistic order. But it's still within our overall control, and we managed to deliver all of this on time. So I read some question also mention how we replan our inventory position across the network. So basically, I believe there's 2 things we did it quite well. Firstly, we try to put inventory in front of the quite near the consumer market. So based on our AI-enabled modeling system, we try to forecast where will be the needs. Another one is we can easily to reput our inventory when the Wuhan's node has been dysfunctioned. Yeah, that's why we can do very well during this issues, crisis. Yeah, actually.
Excellent, thank you. Any final thoughts or comments from our panelists today as we near the hour mark and begin to close out today's conversation?
Yeah, I'm okay. And Zachary and Mr. Jolie, do you have any other comments? Or if the rest of the panelists from Llamasoft, do you have any questions?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this session today. Alfred, Zachary, Jolie, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. For those of you in the audience, to learn more please visit llamasoft.com. You will find our COVID-19 Response Center. We have, along with JD Logistics, been very closely monitoring and working to help our customers, the global supply chain community, as we all work through this tremendous impact of COVID-19. But if you visit llamasoft.com, you'll find some materials on our site, including a exclusive offer to work with JD Logistics as well. If you have any additional questions following this broadcast, feel free to reach out directly to me, matt.gunn@llamasoft.com, and I'll help route those questions to the appropriate people on our team or with JD Logistics. Thank you again for today's conversation.
Yeah, and one more sentence, okay?
Sure.
Well, I would like to wrap up my presentation today with a very famous quote by an ancient Roman. We are waves of the same sea, leaves of the same tree, and flowers of the same garden. And let us wish all the best for all of us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Best wishes.